Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. Welcome to IWLA's live webinar on how Wagner Logistics decreases cost of inventory accuracy with Gather AI, scheduled to run today from 1 to 2 p.m. Central Time. My name is Bennett Judson. I am the Meetings and Registration Coordinator at IWLA. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce our moderator for today, Judy Gordon, Vice President of Marketing with Gather AI. Judy?
Oh, thank you, Bennett, and thank you so much, IWLA, for having us and sponsoring us. My name is Judy Gordon. I'm the VP of Marketing at Gather AI. For those of you who don't know what Gather AI is, we are the market leader in drone-powered inventory monitoring. Cutting-edge warehouses, like many 3PLs in the IWLA, use our proven solution to count and monitor their inventory. And today we're going to talk to one of those cutting-edge warehouses, Wagner Logistics. And we're going to learn how Wagner Logistics is decreasing their cost of inventory accuracy using drone-powered inventory monitoring. So today I have two guests with us from Wagner Logistics, Joe Oliraro and Robin Romero. Joe, can you start and introduce yourself?
Excellent. Thank you, Judy. Joe Oliraro, VP of Sales and Chief Real Estate Officer for Wagner Logistics. I've played multiple roles at Wagner, both inside and outside the organization, and have been involved with Wagner for probably 15 years now.
Robin? Thanks, Joe.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Robin Romero. I am an industrial engineer for Wagner Logistics. I've been with Wagner for almost 4 years now, and my specific responsibilities are more of continuous improvement processing and process documentation and WMS implementation. So a little bit of everything. So
great. So we thought we'd start with an overview of Wagner and the facility that we're going to be talking about today. Joe?
Yeah, so Wagner is based in North Kansas City, Missouri. And then we also have, we really specialize in contract warehousing and transportation across 31 different markets around the U.S. We occupy and operate within 7.5 million square feet. And most recently, you can see up there in the top left corner and down the bottom right, we most recently partnered up and acquired Fulcrum Logistics based out of Portland, Oregon. So that's why you see that on there as well. But we provide services across multiple different industries. We've been in business since 1946, and in 2021 we partnered with Longview Capital, a private equity firm based in New Orleans, and are primed for growth around the country. So we're always looking for new operations and new partnerships with folks like Judy and Gather AI.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about the facility where you have Gather deployed.
Yeah, so go ahead. No, go ahead.
So this facility is located in North Louisiana. This is our Monroe facility. This also is our largest facility that we have. We mainly house roll stock and folding cartons, so finished palletized goods. But what's interesting about this warehouse is we are physically attached to the printing plant. So our warehouse is not only a little bit under 1 million square feet, but we also have about 45,000 rack positions, and we handle a little under 1 million pallets per year. So a very large facility, always looking for continuous improvement opportunities here.
I think you were saying you have a lot of turnover, right?
Yes,
I mean,
our volume is quite large.
Your volume is really large.
Yeah, I would also just add that this facility was built with automation in mind. So we came in at the very beginning of the construction of this operation. AGVs were put in place early on. And so this whole operation is kind of based around the evolution of automation as it goes in support of the plant itself and the warehouse as well. The market in and around this facility, labor somewhat limited. So labor has been a challenge to some degree, and some of the automation that was put in place to address some of those limitations that were in place when the building was constructed.
We thought the audience would be interested in the kinds of automation that you're talking about, Joe. Should we start with this one? So we have some videos to share of automation at the facility. Do you want to talk about this one a little bit before, and then we'll show the video? Or
Sure. Yeah. So the Dematic AGV there in the middle, holding the 2 pallets. It's basically bringing finished goods back from the plant side into a staging area where it will be picked up by a lift driver to be placed in rack. Down in the bottom left is another video that we'll see, and it's a larger AGV that comes in to a staging zone and picks up roll stock paper and takes it into the plant, as you would expect for a raw material to go into a plant to be turned into finished goods.
let's look at this one first. Let me just, okay.
So we use these AGVs mostly to accept the handoff from our customer. So instead of it coming over via trailers and trucks like you would normally do, since we are attached, the AGV is basically our load coming to us. Wagner takes inventory and responsibility of that item at the time that the AGV drops it off. So we begin that scanning process as soon as it's dropped off. And it continues 24/7. It's a 24/7 operation. So these AGVs stay running constantly.
Oh. And then this is the raw material delivery that we talked about.
So yes, we also handle the raw material side. So you'll see that this roll stock will get picked up by this AGV, brought over to the production plant side, and then will actually come out as the folding cartons that you saw in the previous video. These machines are massive. They're not very fast moving, but it has made all the difference in our operation. So just having that steady flow between our customer and the warehouse.
Fantastic. Okay. So this was the automation, I guess, when you first opened the facility. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
So now you've recently started looking at cycle counting or inventory solutions. Joe and Robin, you want to talk about what you've evaluated, what you're using today?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, the AGVs were part of the initial phase of automation for this facility. Second phase is finding other areas where we can incorporate automation to reduce costs, reduce errors, and really make for a more efficient, more effective, and productive warehouse operation. So on the left-hand side there, you can see the drone that we'll be showcasing today. And then on the right-hand side is a sled that is used for RFID technology. Now, we don't have RFID incorporated into this particular facility, but I will tell you that that's kind of a natural next step, or I guess what would be an expectation for, if you wanted to take the human element almost completely out of it, incorporate some RFID, and it really speeds up the process itself. So we're looking into RFID. We've got one customer in another location that we're actually going to be incorporating RFID technology. But for instance here, and what you'll see today, the drone will go up and take pictures and scan all the barcodes on the pallets themselves in rack, and Robin will explain more of the technical details. I'm not the technical guy, but it'll basically go in and scan in rack what is there, and then we'll spit back a report that identifies any outliers or errors that then we can go check out. So it basically replaces the need to send an inventory specialist up on a lift to go up and down the aisles and check every box. It really just sets them up to only have to verify any discrepancies or errors that come back in the report.
Okay, great. So let's talk about that. What started you guys looking at this solution to help with your challenges?
So I think I kind of mentioned it earlier. We're limited in the labor market that we have surrounding the facility. So we really have to take advantage of the the productivity that we have in front of us and taking the most advantage of that as we can. So being able to free up someone's time in the facility, especially an inventory control specialist, really allows us to redeploy that person's time and activity around the warehouse to help be more effective and improve operations throughout the warehouse. So Robin will get into some of the time savings and benefits more specifically around that, but that was the impetus around incorporating drone automation into the facility itself.
Okay, so now, go ahead,
to
Robin.
Sorry, to add to that, another thing about this facility is the volume of product that we handle was a lot larger than I think the original anticipation, even from the customer standpoint. So one of the things that we found was even though our cycle count and inventory accuracy scores were high and in the 99%, 99.8, that outlying 0.2%, because the volume is so high, was quite impactful. It was still over $1 million worth of product. So we are always trying to narrow that gap, not only for us, but for our customers. So the volume really had a big push on getting something that would help with our inventory accuracy. So.
Great. All right. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to stop sharing for a second and just have a conversation. For anyone in the audience, please put in any questions in the Q&A and we'll be happy to address them as we're talking. So Robin, you talked a little bit about the benefit, the fact that the inventory accuracy was high, but you really needed to get even higher. What kinds of improvements, what kinds of benefits have you seen using drones?
Well, besides the volume, this is a very large square foot, warehouse. So not only was it hard to keep track of things, but using such a large area, drones has really helped to narrow the amount of, it's helped to speed up the amount of things that we can see in a day, right? Because we can only physically visit so many locations in a day, where with a drone, we're able to increase the speed of us checking multiple locations and get ahead. So if we do by chance misplace a pallet and don't scan it to the correct location, we have a much higher chance of finding it before it ages out or when we're looking for it for a shipping order. So it's really increased the speed of finding lost product as well. So it kind of made the warehouse not feel so big.
Yeah. So can you give us a sense as to the speed? How many pallets are you able to do a day?
So we were normally doing about 2 aisles a day, which is about 500 pallet positions per aisle. Beforehand, we would do 2 aisles a day on a man lift where somebody would get strapped in and go up on the lift and basically physically verify that every day. We are now able to cut that time in half, and we are hoping to increase that with, the further use and getting more able to do things on the dashboard where we're just getting more comfortable with it. So we are looking to increase that speed as well. So not only can we meet the customer's demand of doing 2 aisles a day, we can get ahead or potentially be more proactive whenever we're looking for material and making sure our racks are in location, and even use it for consolidations and things. So.
Okay, great.
Safety is another factor there as well, as sending a person up on a lift multiple times a day, it just ups the risk. So this also reduces some of the safety risks that employees take in the warehouse.
And Joe, have you seen any benefits from a customer perspective, like from your customer?
I think they appreciate the reporting and the quickness that we can turn around a cycle count. And like Robin said, being able to identify errors sooner than later only serve to increase our, the KPIs that we have to hit in the warehouse, and some of the reporting comes back a lot cleaner and looks better.
It's also going to be easier to standardize across all of our warehouses is using this type of solution. Our customer is really excited about any continuous improvement opportunities. So they've actually seen the drone fly and are now trying to implement it in other facilities. So it's been a rock star success with at least the customer where we've implemented it. So.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and just to build on that, I think the cost of infrastructure is a big selling point. You're basically just flying a drone around in the space and incorporating some software. So it's from a cost to get up and running. It's not running wires in the concrete or building out specific racking or putting massive infrastructure in place. It's a a viable means of implementing automation in a facility for specific level tasks.
Okay. Any other productivity benefits that you've seen? You talked about, finding errors more quickly. Any other kind of productivity things that you've seen?
One of the best things that we have is because we're able to do the required cycle count sooner, it gives us options on what we do with that excess time, right? So that employee could now go work in a different department, or maybe can prioritize a special project, or do anything for a supervisor that maybe would have originally taken away from their day-to-day. So we're just able to utilize that labor now in different aspects and really get the most bang, potentially even being able to reduce labor in future once we really feel settled and calm with it. So lots of savings and productivity gains there.
Great. So we talked about KPIs. Joe, you mentioned KPIs. What are your KPIs for success, and how has using the drone helped?
So the main KPIs that we went in here looking to not only record, but utilize for further improvement, inventory accuracy. So cycle count scores is one that we keep up with pretty much every day. Speed to cycle count. So we want to see that we are getting more efficient. We are counting more locations as the time goes on and things like that. Also, how long is it taking us to count versus how many we're counting? And then one of the things that we really wanted to take away from the solution side is we know that we have issues in our process. This is actually helping us pinpoint those issues, right? So we can figure out if there's a specific area in the warehouse that maybe has a network issue because we are consistently seeing cycle count errors happen in this aisle, we can do further investigations. Maybe there's a label missing, but it's giving us a chance to also fill those gaps. So along with your normal KPIs, they're helping us bring issues and errors and other complications to the level where we can see them and do something about it. So,
and are you able to share any of the numbers, any improvements that you?
So we have gone from I think we've increased our cycle count score. It was a 99.6 and now we're at a 99.8. So even though, like I said, volume is everything, guys. So even though it seems like a small jump, we have been fighting for this gap. We've improved from 96 to 99 and where we are now, but we are just using the drones to be able to even further improve that inventory accuracy scores. So yes. And then like I said, we were able to cycle count in about half the time that we were before. So yep, lots of good things.
Okay, there are a lot of questions here about how the drone works.
Okay.
And so I think maybe the best thing for us to do is to start to talk about that. But before we do that, I do see a question about training.
Okay.
So the question was, how long did it take to educate the drone pilot? So can you talk a little bit about the training and implementation process, and we can talk about how the solution works.
So first of all, working with Gather has been a relief in a lot of ways. So we were originally told that implementation would take about 6 to 8 weeks with all of our 45,000 rack locations, and we actually were able to complete that in about half the time. Gather did a great job of sending enough personnel to be able to fulfill the implementation. So they had about 4 people on site. They worked with our inventory control specialists daily to make sure that they felt comfortable. We had documentation and able to order and fly the drone. And honestly, I've learned how to fly the drone. It's not complicated to use. I think it's something that can be taught very simply. It's a very repetitive thing. And the drone flies itself. So all you need to do is set up where you want a cycle count, let the drone fly, it lands, everything is uploaded to the dashboard. It's actually quite simple. And Judy, I believe you have a video kind of going through that process.
Yeah, I thought we'd show a video, and hopefully we'll answer a lot of these questions. But keep them coming. Thanks for all the questions. Okay. So there were some questions. So we'll try to talk through. We will talk through the kind of how it works, and then I'll go back and answer any questions. I'm going to mute it and let Robin kind of help narrate.
Okay, so the first thing that you really have to do is select which area of the warehouse you're going to be going into. Gather AI gives you a cart to have all of your equipment already on it. So it comes with an iPad, extra batteries, a battery charger, and also the drone. So you're going to start by blocking off your aisle because you don't want any product moving in and out of that while you're cycle counting. So you can see here that we have a operator who has their cart On this cart, they have the iPad, which is where all of the missions can be set and assigned and then ran. You can see the drone, and there also is some spare battery packs on there. So not too much
Yeah.
equipment needed to start off, so it's great. So what she's doing here is she's actually, now that she's picked what aisle of the warehouse she's going into, she's choosing which location she's actually going to cycle count. So what's great about this is you don't have to run the whole aisle. So for instance, in our facility, we have 5 levels high of racking. We could choose just to do the second level if we wanted to. If we were looking for something specific or wanted to do a cycle count on a specific location. Or you can select the entire level and it will just fly in a pattern to be able to take a picture of all of those locations.
So there was a question about setting a mission. And so we have the capability for you to set any mission you want, like Robin said, or
Yes.
set a specific mission. So we have supplier-based missions, not an issue in this facility because it's only one supplier, but you can set kind of, you can create missions based on any parameters you want.
Yes.
Okay.
It's very customizable. And so all they do here is they put the drone on the ground and they aim it towards the racks where you can see a barcode of the location. And all that does is it lets the drone kind of navigate where it is. It pinpoints what location it's starting at. That way it can figure out its path. And then once it is able to differentiate where it is in the warehouse, that's when it will actually start its flight. So this is not remote operated. It will all do autonomously.
Yeah, so here's an example over here on the left of one of those codes that Robin's talking about. And that's part of the implementation process, is that the Gather AI team comes and puts on the labels.
And what's great too is if for whatever reason, if you have an issue down the road with the label, they can always do adjustments remotely. So if you're ever having an issue where maybe the camera's not facing a certain way because of that, Gather does really well with making sure everything is continuing to work smoothly as your implementation goes. So here it is. It will go to each location and take a picture. With this picture, it can use, it will scan the barcode. It can also read text. I believe it also has some image logistics that it can do, where it can, match images to words and things like that. So, and text.
Oh, what happened? Sorry. Pilot error here. Let me just mute it again. I think what I wanted to say with this is that we are able to fly. So I think like Robin and Joe said, we don't require any changes in the warehouse. It can fly in the dark. We don't require Wi-Fi. So it's a fairly simple implementation.
So once the drone has gone through and taken a picture of all the locations that was part of its mission, it will automatically land itself. It will also automatically land itself if the batteries are running low. That way it doesn't just fall out of the sky, or if it runs into any issues with hitting something, if there's something protruding from the racks, the drone is also smart enough to do an emergency landing from there. So
yeah, sorry about that. Okay, yeah, so the drone is landing itself here. Like Robin said, you can change the batteries. This particular location where we did this filming, they're flying multiple drones at once. One operator can fly up to 3 drones at one time.
And what's great about this solution is because it's a robot as a service, you can always add additional drones after the fact. So you can start small. For instance, we're starting with one drone with the thought of potentially adding a second drone down the line. So it is nice to have that flexibility.
So one of the questions, so after the drone is finished flying, all the results from the flight are uploaded to the cloud, analyzed by our artificial intelligence, and then presented on a dashboard. And one of the questions, which was a great question, was how does WMS, how do we integrate with WMS? And the good news is we have a crawl, walk, run approach, and most of our customers are sending a CSV file to us. The benefit of that is that it makes it super easy to get up and running. We're not, you can automate the process. You send us a CSV file. And so we're actually, the AI is actually comparing the results from the picture with what's actually in your WMS. And someone asked Robin and Joe what WMS you all are using.
So in this facility that we have the drone, we actually use the customer's WMS and they use SAP, but we utilize Ramp and Synapse in our other facilities. that is our Wagner WMS.
So as long as your WMS is able to provide us with a CSV file, you can implement the solution. So like we said, drone runs the missions, takes pictures. I think that's one of the most important things is that, like Robin said, we're taking pictures of every location. We're analyzing. This is not a barcode reader. We're looking at what's in a picture. We are reading the barcode, but we're also able to read text. We're able to read multiple barcodes. We have one customer with over 27 different SKUs at a location. We're able to read all those SKUs and compare it with what's in the WMS. And then we present it on the dashboard. And Robin, do you want to talk a little bit about kind of how that process works
Yes.
at Wagner?
So the dashboard we utilize to look up what Gather calls exceptions. So pretty much anytime you find something in the racks that don't match what your WMS system said. So for instance, rack location 1 was expecting pallet A, but it found that pallet B was there instead. It would flag it as an exception for you to go look at. And what's great about the dashboard is you can actually assign tasks to each location. So for example, if you're going through your exceptions and it couldn't read a barcode for whatever reason, the product ID label was flipped up backwards or maybe was missing, we could make a task for an operator to actually go physically look at that location to verify what was there. So after we are done going through all of the exceptions and give it new tasks, whether it was a correction that was made where we just go ahead and move that product to the correct location, or we move it to a research location if it was not in location, we can then hand off anything that needs to be visited physically to one of our operators to validate and verify what is actually in that location. So there still is some physical verification that is needed. But once they're done, they turn in their paperwork and we're able to reconcile the rest of it using the dashboard, which is listing that the exception was completed. We can verify then that it was the right batch ID or product ID that matched the WMS file. One of the great things about the dashboard is how customizable Gather AI makes it. So for instance, in order to mesh the cycle count process that we were using prior to drones, we were able to use the same terminology. So something that our operators are used to seeing, we were able to change the task list to be able to match our current processes. So that was nice, customizable feature that I wasn't expecting. So
Great. So I think, like you said, one of the keys, we basically enable you to sit at your desk or remotely walk through your warehouse and look at pictures. And the pictures, a lot of times you can probably, I'm expecting maybe just reconcile any exceptions just based on looking at the pictures. Is that something you all have found, Robin?
yes. And another thing too is the more that you utilize the dashboard and go through the process with Gather AI, the better your ability of using the drones is going to be, the narrower the gap is going to get. So for instance, if you find that there's a specific exception that maybe is normal, they can change their logic to be able to match what you need. So it's funny, going through the exceptions has gotten actually a lot quicker because we've worked with Gather AI for so long at this point, is because we've noticed a certain pattern where we can be like, hey, this tends to happen a lot. Let's go ahead and add a logic to be able to not have that show up as an exception because that's an expected function. So we're always narrowing that gap of how many exceptions we're looking at.
Yeah, and so that's, I think, a great point. And then as everyone sort of knows about AI and machine learning, it could take a little bit of back and forth to really, learn the facility. But once you learn the facility, it just gets better and better and better.
So for instance,
yeah,
this facility is double deep. We have double deep racking. And one of the logics that Gather AI is working with us on is if the first location matches our WMS file, we can assume that the second back location also matches because we only ever have one material in a location. So that's helping eliminate the number of exceptions that we're having to go through because now we don't have to go and physically verify each back location. So.
And that was one of the questions is, can the drone read double deep locations? So
I'm sorry.
No, thanks. No, that's perfect. And then someone asked, is the drone's dashboard part of your WMS or part of the drone software? And I
So
probably, yeah.
Go ahead.
It's, go ahead, Robin.
So it is not part of our WMS. We're able to keep the WMS and the drone dashboard separately. So it was nice to not have to go to our customer and explain why the need of an integration was needed. So we're able to send the file and it does everything on the dashboard utilizing that file, but you don't have to have your WMS directly talking to the dashboard. So it will not make any changes in the WMS as you're going through the dashboard. You will have to simultaneously kind of be making those changes in your WMS as you find things. I think I understood that question on the second half.
Yeah. So someone, so someone asked about, has the drone crashed?
No, we have had it hit we had a pallet that was kind of sticking out of the racks a little bit that we usually will try to make sure everything's clear before we run the drone. So, tidbit there. But we did have it accidentally hit something. And what the drone did was it kind of bounced, readjusted itself, and then actually emergency landed. And that's how our operator found out. So no one was injured. Nothing was broken. It did a good job, even though it was kind of our fault for having something sticking out of the rack in the first place.
I think someone did ask the question about the drone avoiding obstacles. So in our case, the way we use we use an off-the-shelf drone. And this off-the-shelf drone is powered by our software. The benefit of using an off-the-shelf drone is that it's been millions of people own this type of drone. It's highly reliable. The one thing is we don't have obstacle avoidance, and so you are required to block off the aisle, and you are required to make sure that there's no pallet protrusions or anything sort of in the way. So operationally, Robin, how has that worked for your team?
Honestly, it hasn't been too hard. We were kind of blocking off the aisles when we were doing the cycle counts beforehand. So it hasn't really interrupted any product flow or any type of process flow. It was easily adaptable.
Okay. There's a couple of just quick questions about the product itself. Is it applicable in bulk storage applications? Today, it's not. Today, it only works in rack locations. And the reason is that, as Robin described, when it comes to rack locations, we know the location. We know, and that location is set versus bulk where it could be all over the floor.
With the racks, you have all of your uprights, right? To where they can put those labels of those barcodes where it can kind of pinpoint where it is. Where bulk locations, there isn't usually any consistent spacing or something where you can put a barcode, so it can't navigate quite the same. And that's kind of, I think, one of the reasons why we're still looking into RFID is for those bulk location options. So drone's great for rack locations, but it hasn't quite gotten to the point of bulk.
Yeah.
We are pushing.
What challenges did you encounter when labeling pallets and cartons on the pallets to help the drone with inventory accuracy? So, go ahead.
I was going to say, we're actually really beneficial. Lucky that our customer that is attached to us with the plant actually puts a label on all four sides in the top. So it wasn't really too hard for us to actually have a label visible at all times. But if the barcode is not visible and you can still see text, it can also utilize that technology as well to text read and match things up that way. So
there's a couple of things in that question. We read all kinds of labels. We're in all kinds of warehouses. But one of the first things we do when we engage and make sure that we can add value at the facility is to fly your labels, and make sure that we can work with your labels. When it comes to the location labels, which were the QR code looking things on the sides, that we create and we put on, and you probably haven't had any, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Robin, but that is, would you consider those sort of invisible?
I would say they're pretty low profile. We already have our labels, our rack location labels on the uprights itself, so it kind of blended into our environment. But also because they use those QR codes, they're also replaceable. So if you ever have like damaged uprights or things like that, we haven't had to go through it, but we've heard it's quite easy to replace any of those labels as well. So,
okay, next question. Keep them coming. Does the drone engage with so talk to us about how the drone is engaged with your customers' WMS.
So there's
today?
actually no direct engagement. What we'll do is we will go and run an inventory type of download from the WMS system. And we'll run it to an Excel and save it as a CSV file. And it could be literally just 3 columns of what is the material number, what's the SKU, what's the product ID that we're looking for, and what's the location. So you can minimize the amount of information you're sending to Gather if your customer has any issues with certain information being shared. So we're able to limit that and send it to Gather. We'll send it via email, and that's how it directly relates to our WMS. The drone, as it takes pictures, is now using that downloaded file that we have sent to compare what the WMS file is saying is there versus what it actually saw. And then the dashboard is how it displays those discrepancies. And from there, you can go into your WMS system and make any changes. If you have to move something that you now know is in a certain location, would still have to be done in your WMS separately.
So there was a question about putting the information back in the WMS. You do that today. That
Yeah.
has to be done separately.
Yes, so
Although
we'll
we are
go
working,
manually move in the WMS, any product.
And the question about do the labels, do the rack labels have to be all the way up in the uprights? And so this is part of our installation process. Typically, how long are we at your facility, Robin?
4 days.
4 days.
I mean, 4 weeks. Oh my geez.
I was going to say 4 days with that many locations.
No.
We were there for 4 weeks. So you can imagine 40 to 50,000 pallet locations we labeled all the way up in the uprights. This is something we do. And so, yes, the drone needs those labels to navigate, but it's something that the Gather team does, not the customer.
I'll also say for the labels being on the uprights, our top level does not have the uprights continuing. It kind of like stops. So we place the items on top. So we don't have uprights continuing with the product. They're still able to use the drone to take pictures of that top level using barcodes basically on the crossbeam level of the uprights. So it doesn't have to continue on in case that was one of your concerns.
Yeah. Okay. I think I got almost every question. If I didn't get your question, please ping me again. How long, the question was, how long did it take to integrate? Again, how long did it take for you guys to set up that CSV transfer?
I think it took us, so it doesn't take any integration. So it really didn't take us long, besides just as long as you have an available email, you have Excel and can download it and save it as a CSV file. That's literally everything that is needed. There was no direct integration process that we did to the customer's WMS system.
Okay, great. So Joe, when you're out there selling, how do you talk about this with your prospects and potential customers?
So, there's no silver bullet out there for a fully automated facility, and the work to get it to a fully automated point is a heavy lift. So, I guess what we're talking about with folks, and I think kind of the expectation from the customer side is, what does that roadmap look like? What's phase 1 look like? How long does this typically take? What kind of costs are we looking at? And basically building that automated operation over a certain period of time. So putting together what I would call an automation roadmap to say, okay, within the first 3 months, you're going to have drones put in place for inventory accuracy. And then we'll incorporate AGVs to shuttle product back and forth from the plant, which is attached to the facility, or vice versa. And it's a collaborative effort that you can't really present one slide on and say this is how it works, because it takes time to put all that in place.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things you both sort of mentioned to me. Try to phrase it as a question, was just kind of this like first step. How do you think of this as like kind of step 1 in your automation journey? And can you talk more about the benefits of the drone, of the solution being kind of step 1 in that journey?
The great.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Joe. So I'll be honest, we were looking for other continuous improvement opportunities in our Monroe facility, and we ran into issues with double deep racking. There's not many automated solutions out there for double deep racking, whether it's the AGVs continuing to bring product all the way to the rack. So for us, in order to show our customer that we are still interested in continuous improvement, we are still interested in automation, drones was a great way to show that to the customer. And because we didn't need integration and because it's robot as a service and it's kind of like a monthly thing, it wasn't as scary to bring up to the customer, right? It's a little bit more of a low risk option to not only show improvement and have those things, but also show your dedication to continuous improvement in automation. So I think it's a great first step because drones have been around, people are comfortable with them. It's an easy first thing. It's also a sellable thing for your customer to be able to come into your warehouse and see the drone flying. And it doesn't take that much, but it's still really impressive. Our customer has had many tours just to come see the drones fly. So they're excited about it. And it was something that was relatively inexpensive to implement, didn't take very long, has been great customer service, and then also, is buildable. You can always add that second drone or add that third drone, or maybe you get a control over things and maybe reduce the amount of drones and start your savings there. So I think it's a great first step because of how flexible of a solution it is. So, and inventory accuracy will always be a very high priority for any logistics company out there, right? Because we store and ship products. We can't ship products we can't find. So inventory accuracy.
Yeah, we've kind of said this without saying it, but the ROI, you're so much closer to an ROI with this drone and with this kind of drone technology where it's inexpensive up front, but yet there's a measurable means to start calculating what your costs were versus what you're costing at now.
Great, thank you. There's a question here, Robin, about how many exceptions or discrepancies that you're finding in your dashboard are associated with difference in the export in the CSV, in the timing, WMS versus actual?
So because we lock down the aisles first and foremost, any exceptions that we see on the dashboard still matches what's physically in the location. So hopefully that was part of the question. But I will say our exceptions are getting less. In the beginning, whenever we first started flying the drones, kind of what I was saying with AI slowly learning, how your facility works and some of the exceptions that you want to see, we've actually been able to reduce the amount of exceptions that we saw from day one, just by helping the system learn our facility and learn our processes and learn what's an exception to us versus what's not. So.
Okay, great.
But I would say average for a 500 location row, maybe like 20-ish or 30. And that could be, there was a glare, I couldn't read the barcode. It could be exceptions as simple as just physically going, yep, that's there. Or maybe it's something that's misplaced or misscanned.
Yeah, so again, while it's not integrated, this ability to send the CSV file, a lot of times our customers kind of time it. So the CSV file sent exactly like you said, Robin, right before you fly the aisle.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely part of our process is we will go block the aisle, go and run and download the CSV file, and then go and fly the drone. So just that way we have the most up-to-date location and inventory from that day.
Yeah. And you're right. If you don't have the most accurate inventory, we've seen customers have that bad experience.
Oh yeah, for sure. Things move. It's a warehouse.
Things move, especially in your warehouse.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, so someone asked what the cost of implementation is, and please, I'll give you contact information. Please feel free to reach out to Gather. But I do want to just talk about general pricing, how our pricing works. So initially, there's a setup fee that's a per pallet setup fee, and then we have a yearly subscription fee, and it's basically per warehouse. We have sort of initial fee for one drone, and then there's an incremental charge for a second and an incremental charge for the third. So that's the general how our general pricing works. And like Robin said, it's like a software as a service model. So you're paying as you go, and you can always add. And I think we even talked to you all about using drones as part of your full physical. Was it kind of ramping up, right?
Yeah, so we had some unexpected downtime from our customer during the holidays, and we were going to utilize getting a couple more drones temporarily to be able to do a kind of a wide scan of the entire facility while we had that downtime. So that was definitely something that was nice from Gather AI to be able to send us some drones to use temporarily and then even send back. So it's nice to have that option where you don't need 3 drones at all times, but if you have special circumstances, they can send you additional ones.
So there's a question, how many Wagner facilities are using Gather AI?
Currently just this one. So we implemented about 6 months ago,
Yeah.
but we're already looking at potentially implementing it at other facilities. So we're still kind of on this is our test dummy and seeing how it works. Our customer loves it. I think we've been able to sell it. We've learned a lot. So I think we're definitely going to be looking at it for other facilities, especially our racked facilities.
So Joe and Robin, what has surprised you the most about the solution?
I'll just say, read the fine print, because while the drone does not take lunches, it does require a smoke break. No, no, I think I think it's been refreshing to have you know, the ease of implementation for this type of technology, and be able to roll it in quickly, to keep the process simple enough to where, you know, most warehousemen and warehouse women can operate it, and really take advantage of the, you know, the usability.
I will say another thing that surprised me, and I think this is more Gather AI specific, is the amount of involvement that they have even after the implementation. So for example, we have weekly calls. How's the drone flying? Here's what we saw from your drones. Here's some issues, because they take a look at the data behind the scenes as well. If they see any issues where maybe the drone is taking pictures at a different angle, they bring it up to you. They let you know that they've done something about it. You can talk through changing up your task list that I was talking about earlier. But also, the more we talk through how our process is and what we want to utilize this drone for, the more they can kind of adapt to what we need. So that AI continuously learning, you know, turning on that read text, letting them know what we think is a flag and what's not. It's been very flexible, and we've had great support. So that was a surprise. Also, just in general, how excited everybody has been. The operators have been super excited. I think everybody gets excited whenever they're working in a place where you can see new technology. You have a drone flying around, everybody's coming and stopping. What's that? What's it doing? There's interest being, you know, brought by this, and not just from them, but from the customer. I mentioned it a couple of times where they're looking at it for a different facility. We have tours just to come out and see it. There's been a lot of interest, not just from the customer, but even from our operations. So.
I have one last question, unless there are more questions from the audience. Lessons learned. If anyone's out there, these are your other 3PLs. What would you say? What lessons learned, or what advice would you give someone? Or what advice do you wish you knew a couple months ago?
Well, for my advice would be don't be scared of this solution, because we've brought it up a couple times, but it's pretty low risk. It's reasonably low cost. And because you don't have to directly integrate it to your WMS system, it makes it flexible. It makes it something that, you know, you can bring to your customer and be like, hey, we don't need you to do anything. We just want to make you aware that this is, you know, a solution we're going to move forward with. And it can be a great first continuous improvement opportunity to show your customer and start building your repertoire for that. As for lessons learned, so we are in Louisiana for this warehouse. It gets kind of hot down there. Temperature will affect your battery life, so just be aware of that. So what we did was we actually got a couple of extra batteries sent over there. So for the summer months, we're able to continue and not have any hindrance. But that was something that we kind of had to learn the lesson, where our drone was not lasting as long as anticipated, but it gets hot in that warehouse. It's not a temperature controlled warehouse. So another thing too, just from the operation side, is good network connectivity is important for the upload process. So we have our customers' network down there, and we utilize a cradle point for our own Wagner things. And that cradle point is not quite powerful enough to be able to upload at reasonable speeds, to say the least. So we are looking at getting fiber into there, or utilizing the customer's network to improve that upload speed. But that is something else that we kind of had to work through. So
that's a great point. So you don't need Wi-Fi for the drone to fly, but you do need Wi-Fi for or an internet connection for the iPad to upload the images from that the drone saw.
So after the drone flies and finishes its mission, everything's in the iPad. The iPad has to connect to the network to be able to upload to the dashboard.
Yeah. Joe, any lessons learned?
Mine's more of a general comment because, as we're pricing out new opportunities, we have to go out and vet providers for automation and robotics technology. And we've run into, well, I wouldn't say we haven't really had an issue with it, but it has come up multiple times where we're trying to get pricing from a certain provider, and they have a beautiful website. They have this beautiful looking product, a picture of what the product looks like. And then you ask, well, do you have it in operation anywhere, or do you have it in a physical form where we can see it? And if the answer is no, that's a red flag. And you need to make sure that you're vetting those vendors, that what they have and what they're promoting, what they're putting out there is a viable solution. Because when you go to your customer, you want to make sure that what you're suggesting is a viable solution. So you're putting yourself out there as a 3PL as much as you're also trying to get a solution. So beware of that.
Thanks. Any last stories, Robin? Anything else? Share from the floor.
I will say, because we are dealing with double deep racking in our location, I will say that ideal warehouse solutions would probably be single deep racking, but don't let that stop you if you do have double deep racking. You don't have that visibility to the back locations, but definitely wanted to mention that as well. So
thank you. Okay, so let me just pull up. I just wanted to share one last time. We've already talked about questions. Thank you, IWLA. Thank you so much, everyone who listened in, and thank you so much, Joe and Robin. We really appreciate you taking the time. It was really interesting, and hopefully a lot of other 3PLs took away some good lessons if they want to, looking at a solution like this. Anyone looking to reach out, you can reach out to me. This is my email, Joe or Robin, with any questions. And thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
thank y'all.
Thank you. I just want to say on behalf of IWLA, thank you very much. That was a very informative presentation, so thank you very much. A lot of the questions got answered during the presentation. If you still have a question that didn't get answered, please email that to us at education@iwla.com, and we'll see that the speakers receive them. So I want to thank everyone for participating today. We'll be sending out a copy of the link to the video and the PowerPoint presentation tomorrow. If there, again, any questions, email us at education@iwla.com. Thank you very much for joining us, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.